We're fortunate to have 4 panelists representing a range of specialties and work experience. What I will do to start off the session is I'll be inviting each of the panelists to tell us a little bit about themselves and their career path. I'll be moderating the discussion, but the floor is always open for questions. So even as they're getting started, telling us about themselves, feel free to form a line at the microphone so we can fit in as many questions as we can and not be kind of caught at the end with lots of questions at the end. So feel free to get started. Because indeed, questions from you are going to be far more interesting than questions from me. So, Vanessa, let's get started with you. Could you take a few moments to introduce yourself and tell the women here a little bit about your story?
For sure. So thank you so much to the Perimeter Institute for having me. My name is Vanessa Raponi, and I am an engineer. So kind of growing up, I didn't really know much about engineering, and I was just kind of in the sciences and maths because my mom recommended it, and she was like, it'll help keep your options open if you just kind of stay in those things. And I kind of stumbled into engineering. It was 2 individual conversations with one friend from swimming lessons who was 1 year older than me and one friend's dad who happened to work at Bombardier. So these 2 experiences is what led me to apply for engineering in grade 12. And then I went to McMaster with a dual degree in engineering and business. So I'm a materials engineer, and then I also have a management dual major. And throughout university, you can do these things called co-ops, where you actually get paid over the summer to work in industry. So I had the opportunity to work at Bombardier Aerospace, Pepsi, both foods and beverages manufacturing. I got to go to France for 8 months, where I did an exchange program doing research and studying at the Grenoble Institute of Technology, and also working in Vancouver for a little bit. So really kind of exploring my options. And I ended up working at Spin Master in Toronto. So it's a toy manufacturing company. We created Paw Patrol, which is pretty exciting. And we're actually Canadian founded, and mostly because of Paw Patrol, we are now like number 4 in the industry. So it's been really exciting to work there as a product development engineer, where I work on like remote controlled cars and games. So very fun job. Throughout my undergrad, I also, at some point, created a national not-for-profit organization called ENGIqueers Canada. So I'm a queer woman of color, and I've been really passionate about intersectional feminism and just advocating for a broader spectrum of diversity than just saying we need women in various spaces. And I was able to kind of just create this organization at McMaster, and it slowly grew to 32 universities over 9 provinces over the years. And it's just this need for having broader discussions around diversity and talking about queer issues and having queer communities within STEM was just really, really needed, and it was really exciting to kind of go on that journey. And just one thing I wanted to kind of note is that, I've been in these audiences of these kinds of things at different stages of my life, and sometimes, a lot of you are, between the ages of like 14 to 18, you're going through all sorts of stuff right now. And I don't want you in any way to feel like intimidated, like, oh, these are these people who've done all these things, and am I ever going to get there? And so I just wanted to share a little bit about my background, because undoubtedly a lot of people in the audience have shared things like this with me. So, forgive me for the heaviness, but I just want you to know that throughout my journey, like, I have overcome, my father has been homeless and had mental illness. I've been suicidal at different points in my life. I overcame child sexual abuse from my stepfather. There's been so many things that have happened. My mom immigrated from Sri Lanka, and we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So I don't want you to think that if you have been through these different hardships in life that, you can't have a path to success. You can't overcome these things if you're struggling in something right now. And so I want you to know that like people like us have been through these things too, and that you are not alone, and there are other resources for you. So I just always want to make sure I say those kinds of things when I'm on the stage. So thank you for your time, and I'll pass it on.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for the invitation to be part of this panel. So I'm Hind Al-Abadleh. I'm a chemistry professor at Wilfrid Laurier University, and I have another list of titles that you have in the program. I'll just add one thing that I didn't put in my biography, which that when I was growing up in the United Arab Emirates, I went to an all-girls schools throughout the K-12 education and also in university. So I think when I entered science motivated and empowered because my teachers were women from age 6 all to 18, and also the school staff and everything, and everybody who worked in all-girls schools. So I welcome your questions to see what you have in mind to ask of me. So.
My name is Jessalyn Teed. You can see my little bio in the pamphlet there. I am a pilot. That's why I'm wearing this uniform today. I'm a pilot for Sunwing Airlines. So it started for me when I was 8 years old. I was the kind of kid that knew exactly from that day on what I wanted to be, and I chased after that. So it's a little interesting to be here speaking at a STEM event because I was never super excited about science. It was just something that I had to do to get to my final goal, and I ended up loving it. So when I was 8 years old, I went on this little intro flight up in a small 4-seater aircraft, and I loved it. And from that day on, my parents kind of jumped on that dream with me, and I went to every local air show. I took every opportunity I could to go up in a plane. And then when it came to choosing my post-secondary, I chose the University of Waterloo. I chose that program because I still knew I wanted to do a degree. So I did a Bachelor of Environmental Science alongside my flight training. From there, it took 3 years for me to do that. I then got hired by Sunwing Airlines into a cadet program. So basically what that means is the old way of getting into an aviation job, you used to have to go up north or go instruct and build thousands and thousands of hours until you could see yourself at an airline. But because of the demand right now for aviation professionals, whether that be pilots, maintenance engineers, ATC, anything, they're fast-tracking that process. So I got hired at Sunwing with only 250 hours, which is not very much, right? Going from flying a 4-seater aircraft to an aircraft with 189 passengers behind me. So it was a big jump. It was very challenging. But it took 6 months of really intense training, and I'm there now. I've been there for 2.5 years. And since then, I've gotten to take more of a role in mentorship, in coming back to the University of Waterloo and kind of working with students in this new transition phase of going into these, like, you feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose kind of experiences. And then also going back to the Waterloo Wellington Flight Center, which is here at your local airport, and teaching a course there as well. So I've been able to kind of come back. My whole motto for coming back is to equip, empower, and encourage young women like you today and men as well. So yeah, that's a bit of my story. I'm excited to answer some of your questions. Again, being a pilot might not be seen as the first thing you think of when you think of STEM, but it is within that realm, and I'm excited to speak to you guys about that.
Good morning, ladies and allies. My name is Sarah Sun. I'm Chief Data Strategist of a small company called Goldspot Discoveries. We are a company that brings together artificial intelligence into the mining industry. When I was your age, I loved math. I did everything that I could do in mathematics, but I was told, even by my parents, that you couldn't get a job in math. And so I did everything, and I thought I loved everything growing up. And so on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I wanted to be everything from a doctor, a lawyer. I went through a marine biologist phase. I worked during my internships, like I worked in a biological lab, working with gene expression in eye cells. I have worked IT help desk. I did absolutely everything, and it wasn't until my 4th year of university that I ended up declaring my majors. So I ended up majoring in mathematical finance and statistics, and it's a miracle that I graduated on time because I loved everything. I took to biology, to chemistry, I took physics, I took everything I could get my hands on and realized, and only by exposure to lots and lots of different things did I actually realize that turns out I don't like everything in the world. So, but only by experiencing it and putting myself in those situations did I realize that, like, I love the idea of using mathematics to solve real business challenges. So when I came out of school, I basically became a data scientist. I got to use data, I got to understand and use my math degree to understand the challenges in the financial world. I did that for a few years. And then for some reason, I woke up one day and I was like, I'm really bored in finance. What's going on in the mining industry right now? And I moved into mining where I'm still doing data science, but I do a little bit more of the strategy side of things as well. So I'm less on the building models, working with the data, more working with the clients now, understanding, walking into organizations and teaching them and partnering with them to take advantage of the explosion of interest in artificial intelligence.
Okay, so I'll invite everyone to come up to the mic with your questions. But maybe just to kick things off, what is a piece of advice that you wish you'd known in high school when you were making your education choices? If you could go back.
My biggest piece of advice would be that you do not need to know everything about your future. Like, some people do, which is amazing, and I'm sure there's lots of people in the audience who already have a really clear vision, but if you are not one of those people, like, things will change over time. Like, I entered loving chemistry, and that was why I went into engineering, and now I literally never use chemistry. Like, I'm now more of like a problem solver. The business side of my degree has taken over a lot. But then I'm still like on a sustainable materials initiative where we're trying to like implement bioplastics and biodegradable plastics into our products. So like your career will evolve and flow. So just kind of, you know, letting yourself go with the flow is my biggest piece of advice.
Sorry, I can just add a piece off of that. Yeah. Going off of the enjoying to go with the flow sort of thing, I just want to encourage all of you here today to enjoy the process. Take your time to kind of let this day sink in. Don't feel rushed to make your decision after this or to feel super inspired, but enjoy the process of trying to figure that out. It does take time for some people. Again, like my story is a bit different because I knew what I wanted to do, but that also set me on a very fast track to get there. And I think looking back on it, there's some times when I could have just taken a couple deep breaths, maybe enjoyed it a little bit more rather than stressed about it. But I'm thankful to be where I am today, but I'm trying to take it a bit slower now. So yeah, enjoy this.
It was definitely make your own opportunities. Like luck is, you'd be surprised how much luck can factor into someone's journey, but you can't wait for luck. But opportunities, sometimes you have to ask. Sometimes you have to go and say, I want an internship with you, or I want to be like you one day, or like, why can't I be part of this program? And quite honestly, I think you'd be surprised how many times you run into a situation where the organization or the person or whatever it is you're trying to do, they're just like, oh, we never thought about it before. Okay, let's make an opportunity. So don't be afraid to make those opportunities for yourself.
Is Nuha. Oh, there, sorry. My question is for all of you, what would you say is your moment when you felt like, okay, I've made it, or like your most proud moment in your journey personally to yourself?
Well, I think earning a PhD in chemistry was a milestone that I'm very proud of. Because, you know, everybody goes through high school, everybody goes through the undergrad education. I think grad school is a very special experience because to go to grad school, you have to commit from 2 to 6, 7 years of your life to be specialized and to work with, you know, experts in their fields, and sometimes you have to relocate to another country and you have to build up your social life from scratch, away from family and friends you grew up with. So the whole experience together and to earn a PhD, an advanced degree in a very specialized area, for me that was the milestone and the highlight. Yeah.
For me, I was, is this on? Yeah, there we go. I was 22 when I got the job at Sunwing, and at that point I was the youngest female first officer on a Boeing 737 in Canada. So that, thank you. Yeah, so to me, also coming straight out of university and finally having a job from what I studied for and getting paid instead of paying for it, that was kind of like a made it or milestone moment for me. But again, I said I was only 22. I didn't feel like I was finished yet, so I didn't want to look at it as I made it yet. I wanted to look at my next goal and see what I could work towards next. So I'm still trying to make it.
Yeah, I don't know. Very similar. I I never feel like I've made it. But I think I have learned that it's really important to take time and appreciate what you've done. I have moments in my life where I've looked at something and realized that like this has given me a goal, or I feel like I missed something, and so that's created my next goal for myself. So 2 moments for myself really stand out. One was in 2013. I also coach a group of students in Toronto Mass Circles, but we decided to compete in a US competition for the first time in like 20, 30 years. And we won our division. And for me, that was like, I was like, oh my goodness, we have so much talent in Canada, and then we walk into this American competition where we're one of 3 Canadian teams and we just take it. And it was just incredible, right? It's like, yeah, super exciting. And then last year, I won an award for the Women's Executive Network. I was named one of the top 100 and in the science and tech. And it was funny because I think the year, I had turned 30 recently. And when I turned 31, I had that moment where I was like, I'm never gonna make a top 30 under 30 list. And so it was weird. I know it's really like, it's really weird, right? You look at this and you're like, but I have so much to offer. And so I went on this journey. I'm just like, I'm gonna prove to you that I can do lots of things for you, and I'm gonna continue doing so. So the journey never ends. And I think this idea of like self-improvement and this idea of what is your next goal and what is your next step, I think it's really important to understand for yourself, is there an experience, is there something you want to learn, is there something you want to achieve, and that never ends.
Hi, my name is Amanda from Victoria Park in Toronto. My question for everyone is, was there ever a time when you faced a challenge where you wanted to give up, and what did you do to overcome it, and how did you not give up in the end?
Yeah, big time. I mean, when I was 16, I made the decision I wasn't going to go to university because it was too expensive. And I went on this journey of like just mentally preparing and accepting the fact that I was going to have, you know, $30,000 of OSAP debt the day I graduated, and I just needed to just accept that when I was like 16 years old, and you know, always applying for scholarships and you know, not getting them for years and years and years and years, just like trying so hard and not getting them, but eventually getting them later in life. But for me, I think it was, you know, I kind of mentioned some of the things I've been through in life. There was this particular period where it was a perfect storm of like court case, my dad passed away, like all these things happened back to back to back, and I was just like, I'm done, like no more, like I can't. And for me, what I chose to do in that time, like I actually did 6 years of university, so it was a 5 academic year program to have like that dual degree, plus I took a year off. And choosing to take that year off, I literally, when everyone's like, oh my God, what are you doing in Vancouver? I'm like, going to work, cooking dinner, exercising, repeat, the end, forever. Like, so sometimes just like, for me, it was taking that time to recover and recuperate is what helped me keep going. Yeah.
I think what I found helpful going through challenging times was to put my mindset in a way that I can channel that negative energy into positive energy, and sports is excellent for that. You sweat it out, you sleep on it, and then when you think it over, you find that you know it's a phase that will go and pass on. It's not the end of the world, and then you have to. You know, read your CV. Just have a written document that you actually can go to remind yourself of how, during the good times, this is what you were able to achieve, and this is something that is passing, and it will go away. I also found helpful reading memoirs. You know, reading memoirs of people that you admire, whether they are alive or dead, doesn't matter. Reading books and reading, I like to read nonfiction because nonfiction I can relate to, whereas fiction is fiction. So basically, immersing yourself in activities that will make your mind center around what you have to offer and instead what is challenging for you to overcome. Yeah.
I'll give you a very specific example. So going through flight training, you do your private pilot license, and then you do your commercial license. So to get those licenses, you do a written exam and you do an actual in-flight exam. So I was in university at the time and starting to figure out, okay, what jobs am I going to apply for after? And I wanted to apply for Jazz Aviation, which is one of the Air Canada partners, to go there. And I had gone to a presentation where they said, if you have a fail on your flight test or a partial, which means you didn't fail it, but you didn't pass it, you get another chance. We aren't going to look at your resume. So I have this like big presentation the week before I do my CPL, and I go into that commercial flight test, and I partialed it. There was one item that I couldn't complete, and at the end of that, I walked into the flight center in tears, just distraught, 'cause I'm like, that's it, I'm not getting a job. So the chief flight instructor pulled me aside, and he calmed me down, and then we took some time to think about, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I learn how to cope with this? Because this isn't the first failure I'm going to have in my next 40 years of flying. So in the end, I was very thankful that it happened then, so I could learn how to cope with it, learn how to get back into it. And the big thing that I took from that was like having resilience in the face of adversity through that. So I was happy it happened then because it has happened again since, but now I can look back and be like, okay, I took some time to regroup. I went up with my instructor again, I relearned that lesson, and then I was able to complete it successfully. So it wasn't the end of the world. I didn't not get a job because of it. I still got an interview with Jazz Aviation after that. So it's just nice to see that I was able to overcome that, and if that happens again, how I can react differently. Yeah.
For myself, I think I hear it echoed in all of our things. One of them is take care of yourself. It's especially when you're in a challenging situation, it's hard to realize that sometimes you need to take a step back, and you need to focus on your mental health, your physical health, and whatever it is for you that makes you feel happy and relaxed, pursue that and do that. Having a support system was really important, and that can be parents, friends, a family member, it can be your dog, your cat, but it's, reaching out to people and talking to them and just venting and just like getting those experiences out there, and then just having that support system, someone that you can message when you're having a bad day. That's actually really, really important in all of this. And all of those things help you, give you the right mindset to like, now I'm ready, how do I tackle this challenge? And what can I learn from this challenge so I can avoid the situation next time it happens, or I can handle it with more grace the next time around?
Thank you for your great answers.
Hi, I'm Jane from Mayfield Secondary. I was just wondering what your suggestions are for gaining that experience and finding those opportunities throughout high school and university, and what your suggestions are for finding a job and getting hired after university.
Networking, number one important thing. Like, never underestimate just every single human being you ever meet and who they might know, and like literally, like it's just, you never know the random conversation you will have, and then like I've gotten jobs because I connected with someone over chatting about their kids, and then they're like, so actually what do you do? Like, tell me your interest. And like that was the icebreaker. So you never know what's gonna happen in that regard. And for me it was co-ops, like being able to physically go in industry and get paid to see what engineers did in these completely different industries and completely different fields just helped me understand, like, when I went to France, for example, is when I learned academia was not for me. I couldn't handle the pace. My task for a week would literally be find something interesting. And I was like, but other people find that really exciting. so for me, I like need goals like on the hour so I can like deliver. Like, so it's just really, finding what you like through just being in those places.
Yeah. When I was in high school, our books themselves that we used to study from have listed names of organizations, names of successful people and their experiences. And I found actually pursuing that to get to know more about them and do research about that was very enlightening. For example, I'll give you a real example. My very interest in environmental chemistry and environmental research stemmed from a class in the English book where they talked about the impacts of climate change back in 1993, that this is what will happen in 20, 25 years' time. And they listed the name of an organization in the Netherlands with their address. So I just sent them a letter. I sent them a letter. I said, I've learned about you from my English class. I want to know more about what you do. And they emailed me. They sent me a letter back by mail. No emails at the time. With brochures. And so I got my interest developed in environmental issues in high school. So just look at your textbooks, not because your teachers want you to look into it. Just look at them as a curious being, like what can I learn more beyond what the teacher wants me to learn, and pursue that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say networking and mentorship for sure. This is a great start. You're going to get to do some networking. You're going to get to go to a mentoring speed session. And it's finding those mentors and using them as a resource as well to help you get connected, to help you figure out what are the different events that I can go and participate in and show that I'm curious about this industry or this job.
Absolutely. Take advantage of the people around you. You meet so many interesting people out there. And I find that, you know, I'll do a lot of coffee chats, I'll meet a lot of people, and always extend sort of the same offer to the people who approach me. And very few people actually take me up on that. And so it's a very easy idea of like, if you are looking to get into an organization, et cetera, like you can see if I'm connected to specific individuals on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to facilitate an introduction if I actually know this person or give you my take on that organization and that opportunity. And no one has ever taken me up on this offer, right? And so, but it's funny because it's saying, again, create your own opportunities, ask, and don't be afraid. The worst thing that someone can do is just not answer you or say no. But you're not any worse off than you were before, right?
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to quickly interject to ask Hind a question, because we have a group watching online from Burr Oak Secondary School in Markham, and they had submitted a student had submitted a question for you. Okay. What rewards and challenges are there in applying your research to problems you want to solve?
Rewards?
And challenges.
And challenges, yeah. So the rewarding aspect is when you actually have an idea on a paper, and then you go to the lab and you design the experiment that you think will give you the answer, and then you get that answer. Or you actually get a totally different answer that will set you on a different path that is more productive. And I'm experiencing this right now. Actually, there was a project that I started, 7 years ago with a grad student, and we have been noticing a change in color when we mix certain chemicals together, and we never paid attention to it because we were so fixated in proving the hypothesis that we started with. We published on that, but then I said, maybe this color change actually means something. And when we started digging, that by itself set me on a path that I got, 5-6 papers out of just to study, just from studying the control experiment. We haven't yet done the experiment that we And it got me the Fulbright Canada chair position at the University of California, Irvine. So the rewards were beyond my expectations. The challenges is the perseverance. I mean, being a researcher, it keeps your mind active. It taps into that creativity you have. But it is a lot of hard work. It's a lot of dedication. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of downtime. It's downtime that you have to go through from experiencing a failed experiment after a failed experiment. But once you hit the jackpot, it's called the jackpot, right? Once you hit that point, you forget all about it, as if you have not went through hardship, you have not went through sleepless nights, because it's just I think, what's the hormone? We have a biologist. What's the hormone that gives you that? Is it serotonin or endorphins? Yes. Thank you. You get that flush of endorphins that makes you forget all about it. Absolutely.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. We'll take another question.
Hi, I'm Lillian from Earl Haig Secondary in Toronto. And I was wondering, because you're all from different backgrounds and fields, what is the type of businesswoman persona you present to other people, like men and women alike? Like, do you tell them about your home life? Is that something that you present to others?
I love that question. That's a really cool one. Yeah, I think for me, that's why I've really gravitated towards Spin Master, is that the culture of this specific engineering team I'm a part of, we have a female director of engineering, a female VP of engineering, there's like queer people everywhere, and so I was joking with my sister, my kind of like vibe I'm going for is like a sustainable queer feminist vibe. And she's like, in my day, it was either trendy or tomboy. It's like definitely being really like being my individual self, and like in the workplace, and I just recently won a head cheerleader award at Spin Master for like being all enthusiastic all the time. So like definitely I find like for me, I value authenticity above like everything else, and I have no filter and I'm very open. So like that's something I just still emulate in the workplace for sure.
I think one of the hardest things going through the workplace is balancing what it means to be true and authentic to yourself and how do you portray that to the world. And I think you go through so many cycles of like, oh, do I have to be a certain person in certain situations or this, that, and you learn to navigate that. And I completely agree, it's such a buzzword, but it's so true. Like, you gravitate towards authenticity in leadership and authenticity in the people around you. I don't like dealing with someone if I know that they're saying one thing to appease me, or they're acting one way, and then the next moment I see them be like a completely different person with someone else, and I'm like, I don't understand you.
You lose trust in someone.
You really do, right? It gives you a little bit of a weird feeling, and you're like, I don't know if I can trust anything, or I don't really want to do business with this kind of person, right? When it comes to like the personal side of things, it definitely depends on the person, the situation. I've worked in workplaces where it is your personal life and your social life and your work life is one and the same. All of my best friends still in Toronto, we all were analysts together when we all started at Capital One. And you know, I remember in that first year, like we went to Vegas and New York with a group of girlfriends that I met at work. So it eventually became really, really difficult actually to separate your work life with your social life, right? But I've also worked in workplaces where it has to be a much more professional kind of place. But there, the way to connect with people was still through these interactions. So I used to have a rule, if I go for a coffee chat, I'm like, I don't really want to hear about your work. I want to hear about you as a person. And then by connecting there, you actually are much more effective from a business perspective because you understand what drives them, you understand how they like to communicate, and you're able to bring that together in a way that's like true to yourself and your values.
The aviation industry is interesting because it's only 4% women worldwide. So it's still extremely male-dominated. And you could guess that most of the captains that I fly with are male. In the last 2.5 years, I've only flown with 2 females. So, and they're males that are, could be my dad. Let's just say that. There's that age gap. So it's a very interesting industry to go into as a young female. Both holding, being humble in that, because I got to that position a lot different route than they did, and that can be hard for them to understand sometimes. It took them maybe 10, 15 years to get to where I got in 2 years. So I come remembering that I need to be humble about that, but also being confident in my skill and in my education and the training that I've had, because I didn't have those 10 years of experience, it's easy to say like, oh, you don't have the experience to be here, or oh, you don't deserve to be here, that sort of thing. So being confident that I've been trained to the same standard as them, and I've passed multiple tests, and yeah, confident in the work that I can do there. The other interesting part is we're doing layovers with our colleagues. We're doing 14-hour days where I'm up in the flight deck with the captain for that entire time, just him or her and me, right? So you can't just talk about flying the entire time. It gets pretty boring. Or the weather, or politics, right? So you get to know each other, and maintaining that level of respect, but interest, I think is really important, because a captain once told me people are gonna remember you for what you've done, but they're gonna more so remember you for how you treated them. So I wanna take that seriously, and then also recognize that one day when I become a captain, I wanna take that interest in my first officer and make it that welcoming, warm atmosphere or flight deck. So those are the kind of things I hold in my everyday. Yeah.
Yeah, so I run a research group. So I work with students at different levels, undergraduate, graduate students, and I sometimes host high school students. One of the first things I have to know about them is how, is their time management skills, the commitments on their time, their interests, why they're doing the research that they want to do, what they want to do long term. So I invest that time with them in order for me to make sure that whatever project I put them on, it's gonna tap onto their skills. And it also will give me cues on what skills they need to develop in order for them to be successful after they leave my lab. So I think the answer to your question is that it depends on the setting that you are in. If you are going to work with a supervisor, I think you prepare yourself to actually set the goals, short term, long term. Why do you want to work with that person? What is it that you have to offer that person? And what is it that you want to learn? And what is it that you will see yourself doing in the next 2-3 years afterwards? Skills-wise, you don't have to think of a position, just skills-wise. What is it that you'd like to learn? What is it that you have to offer based on the skills you already have? So if you go with that mindset, then you'll see that you are telling a part of you that is not too personal, but it is about your ability to contribute, your ability to learn, your ability to manage different situations, and that's very important if you work with managers or supervisors.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Sanjita. I'm from Victoria Park Collegiate Institute, and my question to you is, what inspired you to accomplish whatever you have today, or what you have achieved till now? Like, what inspired or motivated you towards this position of your life?
Right. The question for me?
No,
for everybody. Yeah. Okay. So let's start with. No. Okay. Well, this is a philosophical question that I think about every single day because you need to reason to get out of bed, and we have the director of the Perimeter Institute who started the session saying that society faces a number of challenges. So, from a philosophical point of view, if you just look at the human race in general, we do have challenges that we created ourselves because of how we run societies, but that also presents a series of opportunities. So I'd like to be part of those opportunities. I do not want to be the problem maker. I want to be the solution maker. So that's the big picture. That's the big picture. I recognize that human race, human societies have issues that they're dealing with, they're struggling with. There are challenges environmentally, socially, politically, economically, wherever you look. Just look at the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. They have like 17 of them. I mean, seriously. Pick one. Just pick one. If you pick one and make it your life to fix it, you have something to get out of bed every day for. Print it, or put it on your wall. I want to end hunger. I want to make sure every single human and animal on this planet drinks clean water. So just look at those, and you'll see that there is a lot that you have to offer the world. So think about what you have to offer, and then tap into what resources are available, but always look at the possibilities. There is I don't know, I mean, it's an old saying I've heard, I don't know from where, I can't reference that, but it says that, it's an old wisdom, it says that opportunities present themselves as challenges in disguise. So do not always scratch the surface. When something presents itself, don't be satisfied with what you see. There's always something beneath. And usually what's beneath is the opportunity. And always remember, the diamonds and the golds are hidden in rocks that we call cheap, but they're not. You see what I mean? So information goes that way too.
Is there anything that anybody else would like to add? Or?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lana, and my question is, because having a career in STEM is very demanding, how do you balance between personal life, social life, and the work that you do every day?
Right. Is that again for me?
For anybody.
Okay, well, let somebody else take it.
I definitely find just, even in university, just balancing time and time management has always been challenging. And for me, I've always been the kind of person to put a lot on my plate. In final year of university, I was running EduCareers Canada, so I was hopping all over the country all the time. I was overloading 7 engineering courses per term. I was in a musical, so 20 hours of practice a week. So it was just all this craziness. And as some people have alluded to, sometimes sleep is one of the things you sacrifice, but I don't recommend that where at all possible. But you just you decide what's important to you. At the end of the day, everything you're doing is a choice. You're choosing this career, you're choosing the friends, you're choosing the sports, whatever it is. And so you whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, you got to remind yourself that these are all things I want to be investing my time in. And and sometimes I just want to be hanging out watching Netflix for 5 hours, and that's the choice I want in that time. So you kind of just figure out on a day-to-day basis, like, what do I have the energy for? When do I need that downtime and alone time versus when do I need like 5 events in a week because I'm gonna be bored otherwise. So it's just about adapting and figuring out what works for you, and it's a journey. Like you go through phases. Sometimes you're like, maybe I didn't need 3 events in one single night. Like maybe I can do 2. Like so you know, you're gonna grow and change in different points in your life.
The schedule as a pilot can sometimes be looked at as, oh, like, aren't you always away and always flying? And again, that comes into question when you're a woman and you want to have a family and that sort of thing. So that's something that like I early on had to consider and had to think about, how am I going to balance that with some of the other pieces I want to have in my life, like sports and community and that sort of thing. So one thing I can clear up is that the schedule is pretty flexible, and it's really diverse in the sense of we bid for our schedule. So it's all based on seniority. And there's from trips that you can be away for 5 or 6 or 7 days to trips where you can be there and back to Cuba in a day, and you're home for breakfast, you're home for dinner kind of thing. Again, it's not the 9 to 5 either, so you could choose to work on weekends, or you could choose to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday sort of thing. So there's a lot of flexibility, there's a lot of options. And then I have 11 guaranteed days off a month, so I know that I'm gonna have some time off. In that, that's when I choose to prioritize, okay, I'm doing some professional development stuff, I'm still taking courses, I'm still learning, so maybe I'll set 2 or 3 of those guaranteed days off for that. And then 2 or 3 of my guaranteed days off for coming to Waterloo to see my community, or going home to see my family, that sort of thing. So it's really what you choose to prioritize. And for me, I'm a planner, so I like to say, okay, I have these days off, I'm gonna be sitting in a cafe working on this mentorship program, or this is when I have time to give to this community. So yeah, hopefully that clears up the idea of the pilot schedule being you're always flying, because you're not.
I had to learn to say no a lot and not feel bad about saying no, because there's only so many hours in a day, right, to do things. I also had a great support system always. Like my husband is the homemaker. It's fantastic because he knows I do a lot of traveling. I'm not home. I'm not able to clean the house from top to bottom, etc. So he more than happily takes on all of that. He does more of the cooking than I do, and it was a weird kind of role reversal that his family had to kind of come to terms with, and we still get comments about it quite often, actually, about how like unusual that is, or like, don't you think that's a little odd? Or like, Sarah's traveling again? Why? Is this really necessary? Those kind of, we've had a lot of those moments in my time. And then also the other thing is, I think it was important for me once in a while to take a look at everything that I was doing and to really look at what was actually bringing value to me. What did I actually enjoy doing, or what did I feel like I was doing out of obligation? And if I was doing it out of obligation, then maybe I should have a really hard look as to maybe that's a great activity for me to just say no, even though I'm really supportive of what it was at the time.
Thank you.
We'll have time for one more question. Sorry, guys. I know there's a long line. But there will be the chance to, the panelists have told me they'll be able to linger a little bit at the end. So hopefully you can grab them in the speed mentoring session. Sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Sveta. I'm from Coffer Park Secondary School in Mississauga. And my question is, what is the one thing you wish you had known in high school that you know now? Please don't give any like cheesy answers. We want actual truth.
Real deal. This is kind of maybe a weird thing to say, but I wish I had known that your brain does not finish developing until you're 25 years old, which is such a random thing to say, but I just remember so many different times in my life where I was like, I have it all figured out. This is everything. This is how knowledge works. Like, I've got it down packed. And then when I think now at 25, how I used to think at various stages of my life, I'm like, holy crap. Like, I just had such a different perspective. So just knowing that when you feel like, I'm not by any means saying like don't trust yourself and don't like follow your instincts, but like leverage people in your life to get advice, and don't be intimidated if you keep getting advice that's kind of different than what you wanted to do, and sometimes accepting that like people around you who know you really well might be able to see things from a different perspective, because that's, I know, helped me a lot of things that I thought made sense, and having like best friends be like, like your boyfriend's dumb, like, and I'm like, what? No, he's great. And like that kind of stuff, like, and that applies to like career and like all sorts of things. So like to just know like that you will evolve a lot in just the way you view the world.
In high school, I was the captain of a number of teams. I was on the basketball team, I was in gymnastics, I was in volleyball, I was in handball, and and managing studies and sports. So I learned healthy competition, I learned about fair play, and I thought this is how the world runs. And if anything surprised me after high school is that healthy competitions and fair play does not exist. And so it's a myth. It's actually a myth out there that there is a level playing field in the workforce. And actually when the questions that you come up with to ask us about what challenges you have faced, well, if it was healthy competition, if it was a level playing field, if it was fair play, then we wouldn't have challenges, right? Everybody will know the areas they have the strength in, they know they're entering the play court, and they are going to shake the hands of the opposite team and leave happy, right? Life doesn't work this way. I hope that in high school they taught us that. They didn't. And this is, I think, what the School of Life have taught me. Yeah.
I think one tough thing for me personally growing up was this idea that you can outgrow people in your life. I had this conversation actually with a girlfriend about a week ago, and we shared some experiences where as you grow and you develop and your experiences changes, you want to surround yourselves with different types of people. And I had clung on to some negative influences in my life growing up when I should have walked away. And it was because, you know, I think you have this idea like these are my best friends now and these will continue to be my best friends as I grow up, and you don't necessarily see when they're holding you back, or your life just goes, you just go in a completely different direction. You don't get the same internships, you don't go to the same universities, you don't have the same life experiences, and that changes you. And it's okay that your friends change at the same time. I'm not saying you need to like burn a bridge and have a huge argument, but having this idea that your friends will evolve and change, and it's natural for that to happen, and don't cling to, it sounds a little cliche, maybe negative energy or anyone who's actually holding you back in a certain dimension. Trust your instincts when it comes to that kind of thing. I wish I'd learned that a lot when I was a lot younger.
I think this is a simple answer, but obviously something I didn't understand back in high school. I was very shy in the sense of being curious about what I didn't know. So I didn't want to show this like weakness of like, oh, I don't know that much about aviation, but I really want to go into it. So I wouldn't ask questions. And I think that maybe did hinder me a little bit or make me more shy and lack of confidence in that sense. But then I went into this ground school at Sunwing, totally out of my comfort zone, totally out of my experience realm, and had to realize that like I have to ask questions. I have to be confident that like no matter what the question is, it's not going to be a dumb question. And I had to actually believe that, because I know we get told that all the time, no questions are dumb questions. I didn't believe that for a very long time, right? But I think it's just having that confidence that, okay, I can bring this up because I actually don't know, and again, being humble about it, and yeah. It's very simple, but maybe believe that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to wrap up our panel discussion this morning, I'd like to invite you guys to have any closing message for the audience today, anything that you felt that you wanted to share but wasn't asked in a question. And maybe we'll start at the opposite end. Sarah, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, I always have 3 things that I always want to say is be curious, be bold and be courageous. It's okay to be scared. We've all been scared, and every day sometimes I still feel like an imposter. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. But to have the courage to face things, be curious and ask those questions and put yourself in different situations, that is a fantastic way to just tackle the world.
I think the biggest thing for me is seek out community. That's going to be one of your greatest resources, whether that be mentors in your community, whether that be peers that are interested in the same thing as you, and then further in that, going to conferences, going to things like this, finding those other women that can come alongside you and support you, women and men. But that's really important, because those are the ones that are going to be there cheering you on, and those are going to be the ones that are going to be there when you do have those challenges, and they're going to get you back up on that horse as well. So that has been something that has been steadfast for me through high school, through my flight training, and now at Sunwing. And I know all us women here today too want to be a part of building that community for everyone here today as well. So yeah, really dive into that community, seek that out.
So as a professor, I'd like to leave you with a homework. And the homework is, I want you to learn about something called fixed mindsets and growth mindsets. And then promise yourselves, once you learn about growth mindset and fixed mindsets, that you will adopt a growth mindset for your personal and for your professional lives. And that will make a huge difference.
Love it. Homework. I have 3 things as well. My 3 are always resiliency, honesty, and obligation to society. So from resiliency, as I mentioned, I'm sure lots of people in this room are going through tough things at home or in life, or have something scary coming up, and just have faith that there is a light at the end of the tunnel for whatever it is you're facing. And if you can't see it right now, just do whatever you can to remind yourself that that is coming, because it will, I assure you. The second one is honesty. I'm a true believer that honesty is the best policy. Sometimes it's hard to be honest and tell the truth, but if you own up to the truth, it's again what we were mentioning about, gravitating towards authenticity. Lying will put you in crappy situations and it will be hard to get out of. And obligation to society, giving back is so, so important. And, remembering that, for instance, maybe in an industry that's producing plastic and being we need a sustainable thing, and getting sustainability into it, instead of just being this industry sucks, it's how can I fix this industry? Or, us doing things like this, giving back is great. And all of you are leaders in your own way in some capacity, and you can help other people follow the footsteps you've already walked in an easier way. And just if you constantly do that, if everyone constantly does that, we'll just have a better world.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So thank you. Let's thank our panelists again for sharing their time.